Hey there! Today, I'm going to show you how to set up secure access to your AWS resources from your GitLab CI/CD pipelines. Typically, when faced with the problem of how do I access my AWS account from my pipeline, people solve it in one of two ways. They either create AWS access key secret key pairs and store these credentials as pipeline variables, or alternatively, they spin up a GitLab runner with IAM permissions, either via an EKS service account or an EC2 instance role. In this video, I'll show you an alternative, which is to use OIDC. OIDC is arguably more secure, robust, and doesn't require rotating IAM keys. One of the key concepts that we'll be using is the OIDC JOT token. A JOT token is a signed data structure containing claims digitally signed by a provider, in our case GitLab, that will be trusted by AWS IAM. We will use this trust relationship to allow us to assume a specific IAM role. GitLab recently added support to their pipelines for generating JOT tokens that we can use with AWS by adding this environment variable, CI-job JWT v2. Before we get into deploying our OIDC-enabled pipeline, let's first dissect a real-life GitLab JOT token to see what's inside. To do this, we'll first create a GitLab pipeline that uses this project. When run, it will validate the JOT token and also display its claims, including, most importantly for our pipeline, the subject claim. So let's get going. So we'll give it project a name. Oh great, empty project. So what we're going to do now is add a simple single job pipeline. So let's just go to Web IDE. Cool. So first we'll create a job. Now, this project we're going to use is written in Golang, so this job will be based on the Golang image. And the script is going to be fairly straightforward. First we will install this project from source. And the latest, and then we'll run the command. So that's basically the command there, and that's it. So let's commit this to main. Now this will kick off your pipeline. Let's wait for a second. Here's our pipeline. It's our job. We'll click through that, we'll see the progress of it. It can take a little while to run, so I'll fast forward this for you and we'll just jump to the end. Okay, you can see our job is completed and it's validated the GitLab JOT token and it's displayed the JOT token subject. So the structure is there'll be a project path and then the path to our project in GitLab. and then there's a reference type. Specifically, we're after a branch, and then the actual branch name will be main. So when we're building our IAM role and adding conditions, we'll be matching against this job token subject. Now, there are additional claims in this token we could potentially use, but this is the one that is useful for 99% of the cases. Okay, let's carry on. Now, let's give the GitLab project we've just created access to an AWS account. To do this, we have to, firstly, register GitLab as an OIDC provider in our AWS account. Secondly, we'll create an AWS IAM role we want our pipeline to be able to assume. Lastly, we will create a pipeline job that will retrieve temporary credentials and use them to call AWS APIs. Note, I have SDK installed in this environment, which I will be using to deploy the CloudFormation resources we've just talked about. A link to SDK is in the blog post. Firstly, let's initialize a new project. We'll be using this CloudFormation repository for our template source. Copy the clone URL. So this command will create a directory called OIDC devo and set up some initial configuration, which will prompt us for. Cool. So I'll change into our new project. And as you can see, we just have a single file, which is our configuration, storing answers to the questions we just answered. So to register GitLab as an OIDC provider, we'll use the OIDC provider template in this repository. So we'll be using this template here. So to do this, I'll run the cfn config add command. As you can see, this command has created a new configuration file. Let's edit this configuration file and set the provider field. So this line here, line 13, we just need to specify GitLab. Okay, I'm good to deploy now. So let's run this cfn. So I'm going to deploy the OIDC provider stack using the configuration we've just set up. Should just take a second. Cool, okay. Now if we switch to the AWS console, we look at I'm in the IAM section under the identity providers, and if I just do a refresh, you can see we now have a GitLab identity provider and IAM. Cool, okay, we're good for the next step now. Okay. Now we've created the OIDC provider, let's create an AWS IAM role that will be assumed by the pipeline. So this new role should grant the minimum set of permissions required that you or your security team are comfortable with. And secondly, should only be able to be assumed from the specific GitLab project and possibly only for a specific branch. Okay, we're going to use this GitLab OIDC starter role template as the basis for this next step. So we'll go back to the console and we'll do a cfn config add Now we're going to pass the inline flag, which will create a local copy of the template. So it's just asking us if we want to override the OIDC provider configuration. No, we don't. So now we have a GitLab OIDC starter role configuration file, and we have the corresponding CloudFormation template in this project. Now if we have a quick look at this configuration file, we need to provide a project path. So this is the GitLab project that's allowed to assume this role. And we'll also need to provide a project branch. So we'll leave this blank because we want our pipeline to run from any branch. So we'll just, for the project branch, what we do is we find our project in GitLab. So I think URL, everything after this say gitlab.com/, so we just put that here, and our project branch is blank, like that. Now if we have a quick look at the template, this template here, there's some conditional logic here which we're using to match the subject and the GitLab token, and we give this role the ability to only call the STS get caller identity, which is sufficient for this demo. Okay, we're good to deploy. So this can take a little bit longer. So this GitLab OIDC starter role template will pull in the OIDC provider configuration it requires automatically. So we don't have to wire them up. We will fast forward to the end of this deployment. Okay, we're done. Okay, this is our new IAM role that we want. So actually if we go back to the Amazon console again, here's our new role. If we click on it, we can see the permissions, the STS get caller identity, and it has a trust relationship which controls who can assume this role. So you can see here, it's the principal is this OIDC provider we created in the previous step, and it will authorize any JOT tokens with the subject of matching this. So project path, and then this is our project path we configured. The ref type is branch, and the ref is any branch basically. So at this point, we have an IAM role that can be assumed from our GitLab pipeline using the GitLab JOT token. To complete this demo, we'll start by adding another job to the GitLab pipeline we created earlier. This job will assume the IAM role we've just deployed, and for this demo, we'll just invoke the STS get caller identity API to show that we've successfully authenticated and assumed the role. Okay, let's start by giving our job a name. Now the image, we're going to use the standard Amazon CLI image. Now this image defines an entry point which can cause issues with GitLab pipeline, so we'll override the entry point. Next, we're going to find an environment variable where we'll parameterize the role ARN so it's easy to make changes. Then we're going to copy this from the role we've just deployed previously. This one here. And then we define our script. Now the first two commands in the script are a little bit complicated, so I'm just going to paste them in and then I'll talk you through it. So this first command is doing the STS assume role with web identity call. It's assuming the role that we've just deployed previously, and we're using the web identity token, the CI job jot v2 token, which is provided to us by GitLab. That should give us some credentials back, and then this next command is just setting those credentials, the AWS access key, secret access key, and session token as environment variables, so we can just pass them through to successive commands. So the next one is we're just going to do a AWS STS get call identity command as promised. So let's commit this to main and run it and see what happens. Let's wait for our pipeline. Here's our pipeline. There are two jobs. This is the one we created earlier, and this is the new job. So let's click through on that. Cool. As you can see, the job succeeded. Here's our STS get call identity call. And we got a valid identity back, including the role ARN for the role just assumed, which is the one we've just deployed. So there we have it. So we've deployed an OIDC provider, created a role that trusts that provider, and then we've added a pipeline job to assume that role. Hopefully, this presentation has helped you understand how you can use OIDC to secure your GitLab AWS pipelines. There are many improvements we can make to this. If you encounter any issues or are interested in taking this further, please leave a comment. And thanks for watching.